I want to start out this video by saying thank you so much for making me a part of your day by just checking out my content, watching my video, engaging with my videos, be it a like, a comment, or even a dislike. You've helped me hit over 1,000 subscribers, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. So again, thank you so much. Now let's get into the video, and we are talking about the battery life of the Steam Deck. This thing is an absolute beast of a device, but what isn't such a beast is its battery life. Its battery life isn't great, especially when you're playing AAA, big, graphical, intensive titles like I have been playing, like Spider-Man Remastered, God of War, Star Wars Fallen Order. If you're playing big graphical games, the battery life will only last you around 2 hours. If you're playing a lot of older games, then the battery life will last you a lot longer, or if you're even doing emulation, the battery life will last you quite a while. But if you're playing AAA games, big graphical games, this won't even get you through a short hold flight. Then a battery bank is an absolute must. I would highly recommend a 45 watt or 65 watt battery bank. Make sure it is the right battery bank, because if it isn't, you'll get that dreaded message coming up saying charger is too slow, and when you're gaming, although it can be charging, it might end up discharging the battery. So always make sure the wattage is high enough to charge your Steam Deck. When looking at battery banks, there'll be a whole bunch down in the description. Now let's get started with a few little quick tips. Turning off Wi-Fi when it's not needed, turning off Bluetooth, it will all help you get better battery life. Turn off Game Rumble and System Haptics under quick settings. I would also recommend turning down the brightness to around 60 or 70, as well as turning on adjustive brightness, so your deck isn't always as bright as it needs to be. It will adjust depending on the room that you are in. And of course, lowering the brightness lower than it should be always does save battery life as well. Be it just minutes of battery life, it still saves some battery life. Now, this game will only last you about an hour and a half, 2 hours a push, but you can push it past that 2 hour mark to almost 3 hours of gaming just by simple tweaks. So it turns off vibrations on those haptic touches. Really doesn't really do a lot in games anyway, I don't think. So turn off haptics, you really don't need them. Game Rumble, yeah, it's effective, sure, but it's a battery killer. Turning off these little features here and there will save you quite a bit of battery just toggling them off. Also lower the frame rate to 30 frames per second, and for the most part it will stay consistent. And the game still runs really well, it still runs really smooth. It'll take a split second there to adjust the frames and the refresh rate, but after that, you're golden, you're good to go. The battery life will fluctuate until it finds its balance there, but you will have more battery life to go on. Every time something happens on screen, it refreshes to make sure that whatever happens does not look choppy and doesn't stutter. I would recommend lowering the refresh rate as well to around 40 Hz. I would also recommend turning on half rate shading. Also toggle the TDP limit, adjusting the number of watts, which is thermal design power. And this basically tells you how much heat is being used by the CPU and GPU of the deck. It indicates how much power is being consumed by the CPU and GPU. And the higher this is, it results in lower battery life. So put this down as low as you think will still work for you, and you will save quite a bit of battery life. Now, when I talk about heat and the temperature of the deck, and that's what TDP does, so lowering TDP will lower the APU temperature. If you want to see all of these specs yourself on screen, turn on the performance overlay to see all of these features, to see what's too low, what's too high, is it working with this, is it working with that, and then adjust it accordingly. You can also adjust the GPU clock speed to extend battery life as well. So this is a bit of a fiddly one. So adjust this accordingly. I have found adjusting this to around 800, 900 or even 1000 with the clock limit works well for me. But unless you are someone that knows what you are doing here, I would recommend leaving this the way it is. But it can be adjusted, because lowering the setting can make the game really unplayable. So make sure you know what you are doing before you mess around with this. And here is a very good example. My battery life is quite low here, and I should have around 40 minutes remaining, but I still have an hour and a quarter remaining of battery life. So here's the before with everything off, and I have 40 minutes or so left, and here is after with everything toggled on what needs to be on to save battery. So this does work, and it does optimize it really great for more time gaming off charge. Here's a notable mention, but I wouldn't recommend doing this, although it will save you a lot of battery life, and that is remote play. Steam Link, streaming your games via your PC, or if you use remote play for PS5 or Xbox or xCloud with Xbox, stream it via that to your deck, because then you are not playing your game natively on deck, you're streaming it. So it isn't taking up all of that deck's hardware power. It isn't using up all of that battery with high graphical games, because you are streaming those games. Although I don't like streaming games, I think that defeats the purpose of a Steam Deck. If you're not going to play natively on deck and you're going to stream somewhere via the cloud, that defeats the purpose, sure. But that's another battery saving tip, and that's a very big one as well. Also, resolution. Lowering the resolution to 720p when in games via the pause menu. But not everyone wants to make these big, graphical intense games look like they are being played straight off a potato. I get it, I do, I would hate that as well. But honestly, if you want to save battery, if you want to get more out of your deck, then I would highly recommend it. If you're playing older backlog games, if you're playing games that aren't as graphically intense, then you should be fine. You should be golden. But following these tips will really, really keep you going for a lot longer without the potential need of a battery bank at hand sooner rather than later. Now we get into plugins. Decky Loader. If you haven't got Decky Loader installed, this is a must. Go to desktop mode, load up your internet browser of choice, look up Decky Loader and download it. And you can install a plugin via Decky Loader called Power Tools. And with this you can tweak even more. But I haven't tweaked around with really anything from the Decky Loader plugin Power Tools, because I felt like I really don't need to. Using the methods that I have said here that's already on deck with the quick access menu, I have found that is satisfactory. It meets all of my needs, but Power Tools is there if you want to go a bit more in depth. It can be quite daunting, it can be quite intimidating looking at all of these, wondering what all of these are for. The final big tip here is if you ever want to check your battery's health of the Steam Deck, go to desktop. Tap the Steam icon, then click System, Info Center, Energy, and here you will be able to see your battery health, the health of your Steam Deck and the condition of your battery overall. And there are some top tips that I think balances it out perfectly. A great balance between gaming and battery life following these tips. Anyways guys, I'll see you next time.